I'm exploring all the technological steps of human history, and right now I'm covering one that is a bit controversial: the invention of black powder and the early weapons that used it. The policies on YouTube are a bit vague and not always consistently enforced, so covering guns and related content can potentially result in demonetization or age restriction, or at least some theorize that your content could get shadow banned and push less to viewers for content they consider less desirable. So far we've covered some of the earliest first steps of black powder weapons, with weapons that can pretty safely be labeled as not a gun. And so far nothing has gotten flagged. The views have diminished some, so there might potentially be some kind of shadow ban going on. Or I'm just not producing compelling content that people actually want to watch, and I'm likely wasting the best years of my life on a hopeless endeavor that's going nowhere. But that's probably not it. In this video, we're going to be crossing that threshold into what could very easily be considered the very first form of firearm, a device that actually started first more as a flamethrower, but ended up evolving into more of a shotgun, and paved the way into our more traditional understanding and definitions of a cannon or gun. We're making a Firelance, a fascinating device that I think stands firmly on the boundary between the first thresholds into firearms, and hopefully it does not get us demonetized. While potentially controversial to cover, the history and origins of guns is something that we can't really ignore. This weapon made huge impacts on world history, both in its utilization and warfare, but also in the metallurgy and focus on precision it required to stay competitive in the battlefield. In my long-reaching goal of going from the Stone Age and into the Industrial Age, my primary focus is on the steam engine, and in that I have placed the development of the cannon as an important predecessor technology. Black powder weapons and cannons developed, it required an advancement in our level of precision and helped pave the way into some of the same precision requirements for a steam engine. So in this video we explore the origins of the cannon with the proto-cannon, the Firelance.
But before we get demonetized, let's get demonized. The oldest known depiction of the Firelance dates to 950 AD, fittingly shown being wielded by a demon attacking Buddha. This association is unsurprising given the Firelance's shocking and fearsome application in combat. In a previous black powder video, we explored the invention of rockets. The Firelance and the rocket were likely developed around the same time in the 10th century, with the Firelance probably coming first. Both rely on the basic principle of igniting black powder inside of a closed container with a single point of escape. When ignited, the pressure was expelled through this point with tremendous force. For a rocket, this force is used for propulsion, sending a projectile towards the enemy. With a Firelance, you simply invert the concept, directing the fiery jet towards your opponent. In its earliest form, the Firelance functioned more like an incredibly violent flamethrower. Early models were constructed from bamboo and mounted at the end of spears and lances, allowing them to be used both for thrusting and as an incendiary weapon. Let's start first by having Theo forge us a Lancehead. These terrifying tools proved highly effective in warfare for centuries in China, even remaining in use after the invention of true cannons. But the Firelance didn't cross into being a proto-cannon until warriors realized they could start loading small projectiles, like rocks, shards of porcelain, or bits of iron into the barrel. These objects were propelled by the force of the ignited black powder. However, unlike a standard gun, where the projectile fits tightly in the barrel to harness the buildup of pressure, the Firelance operated on a different principle. Its projectiles were coviative, meaning they were carried along in the blast rather than propelled by a focused buildup of pressure. While this resulted in weaker projectiles with shorter ranges, it added some penetrating power to the Firelance's flames. As the weapon evolved, its construction advanced from bamboo to metal, increasing durability and effectiveness.
Thank you to today's sponsor, Bombas. Bombas makes some of the most comfortable socks, underwear, and t-shirts you'll ever wear. The best part about having Bombas sponsor this video is that I legitimately own Bombas socks, and they're probably some of the most comfortable socks that I've ever worn. Their socks have built-in arch support, natural feeling materials, and no annoying toe seams. They're great for every occasion, from running, hiking, or just staying cozy. But what really sets Bombas apart is their mission. For every item you purchase, they donate one to someone in need. Socks, underwear, and t-shirts are the top 3 most requested clothing items at shelters, and Bombas is helping meet that need. Over 100 million items donated so far. And it's not just socks either. Every product is designed to make you feel great while doing good. If you're on the fence, Bombas also offers a 100% happiness guarantee. Free returns, free exchanges, no questions asked. They got you covered. So if you want to feel good and do good, head to bombas.com/HTME and use code HTME20 for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/HTME.
For our recreation, we were inspired by a fascinating depiction of a European Firelance, supposedly from 1396. With two versions of our Firelance made, we can now put them to the test. Despite their crucial importance and centuries-long use in history, I haven't really been able to find any depictions of their use in film or television. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how these look in real life. As we progress with black powder, there's a decent risk of something going wrong and potentially causing some harm. So we proceed with an excess of caution. First testing in a remote area where we could take cover when we fired, and by using a remote igniter.
The Firelance here set up with our first one with the bamboo. We're going to test it on a pumpkin and see if we're going to use a remote trigger just in case it blows up. But this should have the effect of like a flamethrower, and hopefully will melt the face off of our pumpkin. So we'll give it a shot and see how well it works.
We started first with a small load of gunpowder.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna hold that.
Then we increased the load in the second attempt.
We tried the previous one, and that was more of a kind of an incendiary flamethrower blend where it starts from the front here and burns its way back. For this, another one of the descriptions that it had for how it would be used is actually as sort of a rock thrower, kind of like an early shotgun. So rather than have the fire come backwards, we put the fuse on the back section and loaded just some stones in here and some leaves to hold it all together. This one hopefully should leave a little bit more noticeable damage on the pumpkin.
Despite launching at close blank range, we still managed to miss, and we can see the rocks flying right over the pumpkin.
That wasn't so bad.
On the fourth attempt, we loaded it with even more and heavier rocks, which ended up providing too much resistance and caused the tube to explode and send bamboo shrapnel everywhere. Fortunately, we were all behind cover, so avoided any actual risk. Nevertheless, this was kind of the worst case scenario, so we held back on loading more projectiles into these, especially as we moved on to the iron one, as metal shrapnel would be even more hazardous.
Yeah, it popped.
We are gonna try the European style of Firelance here. Difference being this is a steel tube now that has been forge welded all the way down. It has a back cap here to stop it from blasting back, theoretically. A lot like the first shot that we tried with the Chinese Firelance, where the fuse burns this way, hopefully so we can kind of have that flame shooting effect rather than a shotgun or an explosion.
So after building a few of our own Firelances and testing them out in the field, I have to say it's a very fascinating weapon and kind of the place it has in history, where you can see how it made a very fearsome weapon to use in the field. Its actual application though, I feel is pretty cumbersome, because you have to light a fuse, then you basically have to kind of hold it pretty close to them and hope they don't like move out of the way, where in a lot of cases it's just easier to stab them. That being said, like a lot of the other black powder weapons that we've explored before this, a lot of it is probably intimidation, and having a stick that just spews fire at the enemy is going to be a bit intimidating, I think. And I definitely wouldn't want to be at the receiving end of one of these. This specific design is probably a little bit more fanciful, might not have actually had any practical actual use in the battlefield. At least making metal ones like this were done historically in China, but it makes it really obvious how you go from this to an actual cannon once you start putting projectiles into it. But also in our experimentation, we also kind of saw the dangerous side of this when we put a little bit too heavy of projectiles into too flimsy of a cannon and the bamboo just exploded on us. Fortunately, we took a lot of safety precautions and were able to keep ourselves out of danger with that. Definitely a good reminder of the dangers of black powder, and that if you do things wrong and you put a little too much resistance, the whole thing can fail catastrophically and turn into basically a grenade. So this Firelance is pretty thin metal, not too difficult to forge weld. Actually making something able to cannon, able to shoot larger projectiles with more consistency is going to be require a little bit more refinement. And moving forward, making other cannons, especially as we get larger and larger, it's going to require a little bit more knowledge in metallurgy, and most specifically wanting to unlock the technology of cast iron. The hope is we can use that and cast some larger cannons and do something a little bit more formidable. First, we're going to be doing bronze hand cannons and testing that out, and actually going to try wood ones, that apparently has a lot of historical use. After this, I think I'm pretty safe to say this can be a gun, and everything after this is definitely a gun. We'll see where this lands with the YouTube and demonetization. Hopefully we're okay. By a lot of legal standards, we should be good until we try to breech load our weapons. As long as we muzzle load, we should be legally fine. But YouTube's definitions are a little bit more vague. So there's a decent chance that even if you're subscribed, you might not get pushed to videos like this one or future ones. So I recommend making sure you check out these videos. Otherwise, we are probably gonna bake it up to ourselves trying to do these. Thanks for watching. Thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. It's thanks to your support that we're able to kind of take a little bit more risk on doing videos like this that might not necessarily get the views or the monetization that we're after. So thank you for your continued support, and thanks for watching.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and check out other content we have covering a wide variety of topics. Also, if you've enjoyed these series, consider supporting us on Patreon. We are largely a fan-funded channel and depend on the support of our viewers in order to keep our series going. Thanks for watching.